This is CNN Student News. I'm Carl Azus at the CNN Center. First up in today's commercial-free coverage, the U.S. Army has charged Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl with desertion and misbehavior before the enemy when he left his post in Afghanistan. Sergeant Bergdahl's expected to be court-martialed, meaning he could be tried in a military court for his alleged crimes. If convicted, he could be dishonorably discharged and imprisoned. Bergdahl was the longest-held U.S. prisoner of war since the conflict in Vietnam. Securing his release was a top priority for President Obama, who said the U.S. does not leave its soldiers behind. But the way the Obama administration secured Bergdahl's release was controversial. It didn't notify Congress about it 30 days in advance, as law requires. It exchanged 5 Taliban prisoners held at Guantanamo Bay for Bergdahl. U.S. intelligence reports have suggested that one of these former prisoners had since contacted the Taliban.
The night Bowe Bergdahl disappeared from his post in the summer of 2009, he was 23 years old. The Army sergeant's gun, bulletproof vest, and his night vision goggles were all found in his bunk. From that moment, the U.S. military would spend almost 5 years looking for and negotiating for Bergdahl's release.
Our commanders are sparing no effort to find this young soldier.
It's a saga that still isn't over for the soldier, who is now 28 years old. When Bowe Bergdahl disappeared, he was stationed at a U.S. military outpost in Paktika province in southeastern Afghanistan. He was supposed to be on a guard shift that night. This was his first deployment as a U.S. soldier, and he had been in Afghanistan less than 2 months. Other soldiers in his unit have described Bergdahl as a deserter and a traitor to his country.
I think he just wanted to go on an adventure without having anybody to answer to, without having anything to worry about. He wanted to be able to go out and see Afghanistan for himself without, the army stopping him.
Bergdahl would end up in the hands of the Taliban. Intensive efforts to find Bergdahl in those early days of his disappearance failed. And before long, Bergdahl's captors would start showing off their prized capture in propaganda videos.
And propaganda that the army drowns us in. In fact, this is exactly why we are hated not only by the Afghans, but by many people in the world.
The U.S. government believed Bergdahl was then passed around between Taliban captors and members of what's called the Haqqani Network, which would have taken him into Pakistan at some point. For Bergdahl's mother and father in Idaho, these videos would be the only proof of life they'd see of their son.
Get me to be released.
Frustrated by the slow progress in finding his son, Bob Bergdahl grew out his beard as a sign of solidarity with Bowe and started teaching himself to speak Pashto, the language of his captors. Bob Bergdahl would later receive scathing criticism as a Taliban sympathizer for growing the beard.
A father does not leave his son alone on the battlefield.
Then in May of last year, after several years of negotiating, the Obama administration agreed to release 5 Taliban prisoners held in Guantanamo Bay for Bowe Bergdahl. He was brought to this field in a remote area of Khost province and handed over to a U.S. Special Forces unit. One of the soldiers told Bowe Bergdahl on the chopper ride out, "We've been looking for you for a long time." Ed Lavandera, CNN, Dallas.
Heinz probably makes you think of ketchup. Other Heinz brands include Nancy's, Ore-Ida, Poppers, Bagel Bites, and Smart Ones. Kraft brings to mind mac and cheese. Other Kraft brands include A1, Capri Sun, Cracker Barrel, Kool-Aid, and Miracle Whip. According to USA Today, 98% of American households have some kind of Kraft product in them. The two businesses are planning to merge, forming the Kraft Heinz Company. We say planning because the merger must first be approved by the U.S. government, whose antitrust laws aim to prevent monopolies. The Kraft Heinz Company would allow the businesses to grow, to cut down on costs, and to better accommodate the changing tastes of consumers as more Americans look for fresh local foods over processed and shipped products. Kraft Heinz would be the world's 5th largest food and beverage company. A lot of you are dreaming of going to the beach this summer. The sea, sand, sun, and swimming. Hopefully not with these. A massive school of sharks, likely black tips and spinners, was recently spotted near the Louisiana coast. Experts say it's normal. They typically migrate north as the weather and water warm up. It may be a little early this year, though. And while black-tip sharks aren't likely to eat you, they do account for about 16% of the shark attacks in Florida. Their relatively small size, black tips usually weigh between 40 and 55 pounds, means the bite wounds people sometimes get from them are pretty minor. Time for the call of the roll. Let's see who's watching and requesting a mention at CNNStudentNews.com. East Windsor High School is in Connecticut, and it's the Panthers who are stalking CNN Student News from East Windsor. Paducah Tillman High School is in Kentucky. Its mascot is the tornado, and it's whirling our way from Paducah. And in Central America, in the capital of Guatemala, hello to the students at Colegio Interamericano at Guatemala City. Between the nations of Israel and Jordan is a landlocked body of water whose shores are more than 1,300 feet below sea level. It's the Dead Sea, which is actually a lake. It's called dead because it's so high in salt and minerals that fish and plants can't live in it. Water levels in this lowest lake on Earth are getting lower.
This is the old Lido Hotel, built on the shores of the Dead Sea.
No one was around to see King Herod's view, but many middle-aged Israelis remember walking through this once swank lobby and right into the waves.
The Dead Sea is way down there. My goodness, are you serious? So where the water line was where?
The water line was actually right at the steps. The demise of the Dead Sea is completely man-made. This is not climate change. You know, this is not an act of nature. The demise of the Dead Sea is taking place under government license.
He shows me a mural of an old Crusader map of the Jordan Valley, and it's a great way to get our bearings, to understand that it all begins in the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus took that famous walk across the waves. That is the main source of the River Jordan. And for centuries, it flowed into the Dead Sea with enough force to keep up with rapid evaporation under that scalding sun. But in the last 50 years, warring neighbors began draining the Jordan.
Israel took half of the River Jordan, another quarter from Syria and another quarter from Jordan.
So there is no one villain in this man-made disaster. It is a simple equation of too many people and not enough cooperation. As we drive down below sea level, ears are popping. We see a liquid victim of all that conflict. A lake unlike any other, smooth as blueberry yogurt. Just imagine the elation of ancient travelers seeing it for the first time. Water in the desert. But then they got close and crunched across a bizarro beach of salt, and instead of cool refreshment, found a thick mineral soup that stings the eyes and burns the tongue. No wonder that for centuries the Dead Sea filled visitors with dread.
They say that splashing any of the Dead Sea in your face is a sensation not unlike being pepper sprayed. Or salt and pepper sprayed, I suppose.
And so one must ease into the warm and viscous water, which feels like 90 degrees and almost slimy. But the floating, amazing. You need a bit of core muscle to keep from flipping over, but otherwise, if not for the blowtorch sun, you can almost nap out here. Now, getting out brings the instant urge to shower. So for most, this is a been there, done that kind of experience. But for hundreds of thousands of people a year, this is not entertainment. It is medicine.
From the lowest lake on Earth to its largest known cave, Son Doong Cave was discovered in 1991. Located near the border between Laos and Vietnam, it's gigantic. It has a jungle inside of it. One of its chambers is 3 miles long. Thanks to a number of cave-ins, it has its own skylights. A photographer used a drone to capture these images of Son Doong. Ryan DeBoot says it took him 8 days and involved a lot of near misses with rocks. That's easy to see. You might destroy your drone flying it through such stalactite spaces, but it would be kind of spelunk-headed not to cave at the opportunity. I'm Carl Azuz, and I am done droning on for the day.